In the cold expanse of space, where countless worlds have fallen before the might of the Zorathians, Earth was nothing more than a fragile speck, its fate sealed by the advancing alien fleet. The Zorathians, conquerors of the galaxy, believed they were invincible, unstoppable in their quest to claim Earth as their own. But they were wrong. As their colossal warships loomed over our cities, their robotic soldiers stormed the streets, humanity stood on the brink of extinction. With no hope in sight, we faced the ultimate test. But in that dark hour, something unexpected happened. Against all odds, humanity didn't surrender. Instead, we tapped into the power of our minds, our resilience, and a force that even the Zorathians couldn't predict. At the height of the battle, as the Zorathian ships rained down destruction, a single human-made device, the Quantum Disruptor, shattered the laws of space and time, opening a rift that sent the alien fleet spiraling into chaos. As the warships malfunctioned, their systems failing, and the Zorathians began to panic, humanity seized the moment to strike back. With renewed strength, the human fleet, enhanced by technology beyond the aliens' comprehension, retaliated with precision and determination. But the Zorathians didn't know yet. They didn't know that humanity, though small in the vast universe, was about to prove just how powerful the human spirit can be when faced with its greatest challenge. The sky darkened. Massive warships, their sleek forms glistening with an eerie, metallic sheen, loomed above Earth's atmosphere. They were like silent giants, silent, but with an intimidating presence that chilled every soul on the planet. These ships were not of human design. No. They were the ships of the Zorathians, alien invaders, conquerors of worlds, now poised to claim Earth as their prize. They floated motionless, casting shadows over cities far below, their immense size dwarfing anything mankind had ever built. The world watched in horror as hundreds of robotic soldiers began to drop from the belly of the warships, their cold, lifeless forms descending like vultures over a dying carcass. They were designed for one thing: to destroy. Steel-clad soldiers, with glowing red eyes that flickered ominously, marching in perfect unison, relentlessly advancing towards Earth's major cities. The first impact was swift explosions, screams. The world plunged into chaos. People scrambled, scattered in fear, unsure of where to run. The ground shook as they fell. Buildings collapsed with the weight of destruction. And then, from the void of space, a voice. Zorath Commander, via screen, calmly and confidently, we have come to take your world. Your resistance is futile. Surrender now, and we will spare your planet. Fight back, and you will be destroyed, all of you. The voice, cold and filled with certainty, echoed through every broadcast on Earth. Across every screen, across every corner of humanity, the same words were heard. The message was clear: surrender or perish. On the surface, the world trembled. But within the military command center, things were different. A quiet storm was brewing. General Eva James, military leader, her eyes cold as steel, staring unwaveringly at the screen. You can destroy our cities, but you will never destroy our spirit. We won't surrender. We'll fight until the last man standing. Her words cut through the panic, igniting a flame within her troops. The Zorathians may have had the power to level cities, but they had underestimated the unbreakable will of the humans they were trying to conquer. Meanwhile, in the shadowed corners of the command center, scientist Leela furiously typed away at a terminal, eyes darting back and forth across the screen, as an unrelenting sense of urgency filled her every thought. Scientist Leela, eyes wide with concern, murmuring to herself, there has to be something they haven't anticipated. We have technology, but it's not enough. We need to think outside the box. If we use what we have, we might just stand a chance. She wasn't just speaking to herself. Her team huddled around her, eyes scanning over the data, trying to find a way, any way, to turn the tide. The Zorathians were powerful, their technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen, but humans had something they didn't: ingenuity, creativity, the ability to innovate in the face of total annihilation. The humans were on the edge of defeat. Their cities were burning, their armies scattered, and hope seemed to be slipping away with every passing second. But little did the Zorathians know, humanity's strength lay not in their weapons, nor in their technology, but in something far stronger: their minds, their will to survive. For the first time, a plan began to take shape, something so unthinkable that even the most advanced minds would consider it impossible. Something that would catch the Zorathians completely off guard. And just like that, humanity's most powerful weapon began to take form, its foundation not in brute force, but in the unyielding, unbreakable resolve of those who refused to bow. As the Zorathians stood poised to wipe Earth from the map, they had no idea what humanity was about to unleash. They thought they had already won. But they were wrong. The room was cloaked in darkness, the only light emanating from a series of advanced control panels that hummed with a low, almost rhythmic pulse. In the center of it all, scientist Leela stood, her eyes darting across a chaotic array of blinking lights and fluctuating graphs. Strange, erratic signals danced across the screens in front of her, impossible patterns that made no sense, yet something about them felt important. She could feel the weight of time pressing on her, the knowledge that every second could be the last. The room buzzed with tension as her fingers hovered over the buttons, the decision to activate the device hanging in the air like a delicate thread. Scientist Leela, urgently, voice tight with urgency, looking at the control board. It's time. We need to use the Quantum Disruptor. It's our only hope. The words hung in the air, thick with finality. Her team exchanged nervous glances, but none of them said a word. There was no room for hesitation now. The Zorathians were already winning, their destruction rippling across the planet with each passing minute. Layla's hands moved decisively. She pushed several buttons and turned a dial, watching as the energy from the Quantum Disruptor began to pulse through the room, growing stronger with each passing second. On the other side of the compound, General Eva James stood, flanked by military officers who had watched as the world they fought to protect began to crumble under the weight of an unstoppable force. Now, their survival depended on a single, untested gamble. General Eva James, with military officers, her tone serious and unwavering, activated. But remember, we have no idea how this will affect the Zorathians. It might not just stop them. It could change everything. Her words resonated like a solemn vow. There was no turning back now. They were about to unleash a force that not only had the potential to stop the alien invaders, but could completely reshape the fabric of reality itself. The team looked to her for guidance, but in that moment, they all knew, this was a gamble unlike anything they had ever faced. With a sharp breath, Leela pressed the final button. A low, humming vibration filled the room, and the air itself seemed to ripple. The Quantum Disruptor, an invention of mind-bending complexity, was now fully activated. Waves of energy surged through the device, and its core began to glow with an eerie, pulsing light. Outside, the Zorathian forces continued their assault, unaware of the door humanity was about to open. What the humans didn't know was that the Quantum Disruptor, a technology capable of manipulating time and space, was not just a weapon, it was a doorway. A doorway into something far more dangerous. For the first time, humanity was about to tap into something beyond their understanding. This was no ordinary weapon. It wasn't simply about stopping an enemy. No, the true nature of the disruptor lay in its ability to bend the very fabric of the universe, to twist time, space, and reality itself. It was a force that could tear open the veil between dimensions, creating a ripple effect that reached beyond the physical world and into realms unknown. As the power surged through the device, Leela watched, her heart pounding in her chest. A single glance at the readings confirmed her fear the disruptor was functioning beyond its expected limits. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that, even if this worked, they were only just beginning to understand the true consequences of their actions. The Zorathians would soon know what it meant to face the unknown. And what came through that doorway would change everything. The room was alive with energy, the air humming as the quantum disruptor reached its full power. Leela stood at the center, eyes fixed on the flickering displays, the numbers flashing like the heartbeat of a dying star. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't let them show. She knew what had to be done. This was their only shot. With a final press of a button, a sharp crack of energy reverberated through the room. The device hummed and then roared to life, sending out a powerful electromagnetic pulse that surged through the atmosphere. The wave shot up into the sky, a shockwave of pure energy that rippled across the heavens. It was no longer just a weapon. It was something more, something alien in itself. Outside, in the vast emptiness of space, the Zorathian warships felt it. At first, it was subtle, just a flicker in their systems. But then, the pulse hit. It washed over them like a tide, a force so strong that the Zorathian ships began to shudder, their once flawless technology creaking and groaning. The ships began to wail as if alive, their hulls cracking under the weight of the strange force. And then, silence. For a brief moment, everything was still. No sound. No movement. The ships, once menacing in their grandeur, hung motionless in space, as though frozen in time itself. Inside the alien vessels, the crew felt it, the oppressive quiet, the stifling stillness. The monitors flickered wildly, their once precise coordinates now useless. They were trapped, suspended in a moment that defied all logic. Scientist Leela. It's done. Let's see how they react. Her words hung in the air like a challenge to the vast, silent void. The Zorathians had always believed themselves to be the masters of the universe, invincible and relentless. But now, they were as still as statues, held in place by an unseen force they could neither comprehend nor escape. The Quantum Disruptor had done more than just disrupt their ships. It had torn open the fabric of reality itself, creating a rip in space-time. The Zorathians were now trapped in an alternate dimension, a dimension where the rules of their reality no longer applied. The fabric of space itself had buckled, warping, and bending as the Zorathians' ships were pulled into an unfamiliar world. Their technology, once flawless, was useless here. Nothing made sense. Their weapons malfunctioned. Their navigation systems went dark. The very concept of time seemed to slip and slide around them, as though they were no longer anchored in the universe they once knew. The scene shifts as we zoom in on the Zorathian fleet. Their ships now drift through an endless expanse of shifting colors and unnatural light, a realm where the sky was not a sky, where the stars twisted into impossible shapes, stretching and folding like liquid. Inside their vessels, the Zorathian commanders were panicked, scrambling for control, desperately trying to make sense of their failing systems. But nothing worked. One of the commanders, his voice shaking with confusion, spoke into the communicator. "Zorath Commander. What is happening? Where are we? This is impossible." The Zorathians had crossed into a realm of pure chaos where time, space, and reality itself were no longer governed by the laws they had known. The Zorathians, in all their might, were no longer the hunters. They were the prey, trapped in an unfamiliar dimension, with no way to escape. For the first time in their long, cruel history, the Zorathians were powerless. They had underestimated their enemies, humans, who had no gods or advanced powers, only the strength of their will and the mind's ability to break through boundaries no one had ever dared to cross. The Zorathians were no longer the conquerors. They were the ones caught in a trap, powerless against the forces they had never even known existed. The Zorathian warships, once imposing and flawless, began to tremble. The smooth, metallic surfaces of their hulls flickered with static, as if the very essence of their technology was unraveling. Alarms blared through the command decks, and the once calm hum of their engines turned into a cacophony of distorted noises. It was as though the ships themselves were screaming in protest, their systems collapsing under an unseen force. Inside the command center of the lead ship, the Zorath commander stood frozen, his eyes wide in disbelief. His hands gripped the edges of his control panel as the screens in front of him blinked erratically. Data streams flickered, cutting out and reappearing in broken patterns. Zorath commander. What is this? What is happening to our ships? His voice trembled as he spoke into the air, but no answer came. The monitors in front of him showed nothing but glitching lines and incomprehensible symbols. The once mighty Zorathian fleet, which had ravaged countless planets, now seemed helpless, its technology failing, its strength reduced to nothing. Outside the command center, the eerie silence in the fleet deepened. The vast ships, towering and invincible just moments ago, were now drifting aimlessly. The steady whirring of their engines had stilled, and their weapons lay dormant. They were trapped in a rift of space and time, their technology at the mercy of an unknown force, their mighty fleets nothing more than hollow shells adrift in a strange, uncharted dimension. The commander's eyes darted across the room, desperately trying to assess the damage. He punched in commands, but each one returned only a string of garbled text, the screens flashing warnings in languages he had never seen. Zorath commander. System failure, energy levels dropping, power loss. What have they done to us? His voice was frantic now, as the reality of their situation hit him. The ships were no longer under his control, and his once sophisticated fleet was being torn apart by something beyond his comprehension. The Zorathians, in their arrogance, had never encountered anything like this before. He turned to his subordinates, his face pale, sweat dripping down his brow. The faces of his officers reflected the same panic, their eyes wide, hands shaking as they tried to make sense of the chaos unfolding around them. The Zorath commander took a deep breath, his mind racing for a solution. But it was clear, they were helpless. The humans, who had seemed so insignificant, had done the unthinkable. They had turned the tables, opening a rift that was now consuming the invincible empire from the inside out. In that moment, the commander realized something he had never considered: they were no longer the invaders. They were the ones trapped. The once unstoppable force was now caught in the grip of something far greater, something they could neither control nor understand. And the humans had won. The Zorathian warships drifted helplessly through the vast, uncharted expanse. Their once immense power had been reduced to nothing more than struggling remnants, as they were pulled deeper into a strange and vibrant dimension. The space around them was no longer the cold, empty void of the universe they had known. Instead, the blackness of space was replaced with swirling colors: deep purples, glowing greens, and fiery oranges shifting and blending like liquid light. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend and twist, warping around the ships as they were caught in the grasp of this unknown realm. Inside the ships, the crew could only watch in horror as their instruments flashed in chaotic patterns. Nothing was stable. The walls of the ships pulsed, the air thick with distortion. Every console sparked, every system malfunctioned, as if the laws of physics themselves had been rewritten. The Zorathian warships, once the pinnacle of advanced technology, were now utterly out of control. Zorath commander. We can't. We can't control anything. The engines, nothing works." His voice cracked, filled with panic. He slammed his fists on the control panel, but there was no response. The ship continued to tumble through the strange, colorful expanse, helpless against the twisting vortex around them. The commander's breath quickened as his mind raced, trying to find a way out, any way to regain control, but it was useless. The ship no longer listened to their commands. The once mighty Zorathian fleet masters of destruction had now become lost wanderers in a realm that defied everything they understood. The dimension they were trapped in bent the very nature of their existence, a place where their technology, their weapons, and their strategies were completely irrelevant. Nothing made sense. Everything was unstable. Outside, the sky, a strange canvas of vibrant energy, shifted constantly, giving the impression that the very universe itself was collapsing and reforming. The stars twisted into bizarre spirals, stretching and contracting like elastic bands. The laws of gravity seemed to lose their grip, and the ships floated aimlessly, their once perfect trajectories broken. Inside the control room, Zorathian officers frantically attempted to fix their systems, but their efforts were in vain. Panic rippled through the ranks. One by one, the monitors went dark, and the once clear views of the outside universe were replaced by a chaotic swirl of colors, impossible and alien. The Zorath commander's eyes went wide, his pupils dilating as he stared at the screen. In the distance, he could see it as swirling rift, a massive tear in the very fabric of reality, pulling them in like a cosmic maw. He gritted his teeth, his voice shaking as he spoke into the communicator. "Zorath commander. What is this place? Where are we? This can't be real." His voice was a mixture of disbelief and terror. They were not just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting against a force they couldn't see, touch, or understand. The Zorathians, who had once been the invincible conquerors of the cosmos, were now helpless against the very fabric of space itself. In that moment, the Zorathians realized the truth. They had underestimated the humans. They had thought the battle would be about technology, about firepower. But they had failed to account for the brilliance of human innovation, the ability to bend the rules, to think beyond the ordinary. What they didn't know was that the humans had done something far more powerful than firepower. They had altered reality itself. In the wake of the chaos, the human warships sprang to life. Once dormant, they now surged forward with a newfound power, their sleek forms cutting through the void of space. Enhanced by the Quantum Disruptor's strange energy, their weapons glowed with a radiant, almost otherworldly light. The battle that had once seemed impossible was now shifting, turning in humanity's favor. "General Eva James. This is our moment. Let's show them what humanity is made of." Her voice echoed through the command deck, calm and resolute, cutting through the tension. The time for survival was over. It was now time for victory. The human fleet, emboldened by the unknown forces they had unleashed, began their counterattack. The warships fired their weapons with deadly precision, launching beams of energy that tore through the vacuum of space and hit their targets with a brilliant, blinding flash. The Zorathian vessels, caught off guard and unable to respond effectively, reeled under the barge. The battle was now fierce. Explosions rocked the alien fleet as human warships weaved through the chaos, their movements fluid and sharp. They were not just fighting with weapons, they were fighting with everything they had: courage, creativity, and an indomitable spirit. Human ships darted through the vast expanse, firing relentlessly. They dodged incoming blasts, using their superior maneuverability and advanced tactics to outsmart the larger, slower Zorathian warships. The once pristine space around them now became a battlefield, streaks of light, fiery explosions, and swirling debris as the two fleets clashed. The Zorathians, powerful but overwhelmed, found themselves on the defensive, their ships damaged and disoriented, their advanced technology unable to keep up with the humans' innovation. General Eva James, shouting through comms. Stay focused. Hit their weak points, don't give them a chance to recover. Each human ship moved with a singular purpose, not just fighting for survival but fighting for a future they had yet to fully grasp. The odds were against them, but they refused to back down. Every blast fired, every move made, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. One by one, Zorathian vessels fell, their shields failing under the relentless onslaught of human firepower. Explosions lit up the dark void as they crumpled like paper under the pressure. The once feared alien fleet was being dismantled before their very eyes, piece by piece. The Zorathians, who had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, now found themselves struggling to maintain control. Their advanced technology, their superior numbers, none of it mattered now. The humans, against all odds, had turned the tide of war. The battle was no longer just about winning, it was about proving that even in the face of unimaginable odds, humanity would rise. Against the invaders' might, the human warships fought not only with strength but with something far more potent: unity, determination, and the knowledge that their survival depended on this very moment. The humans were not just fighting for their planet. They were fighting to show the universe that even the most formidable force could be overcome when the will to survive burned brightly enough. The Zorathian warships, once a formidable force, began their retreat, their massive hulls shaking as they turned away from the fierce onslaught. The once pristine fleet, now battered and broken, drifted away from Earth, their systems failing and their crew in a state of panic. Inside the ships, the soldiers of the Zorathian Empire were helpless, their confidence shattered. The control panels were dead, their weapons inert. They had come to conquer, but now they were fleeing for their very lives. From the command deck of their flagship, the Zorath commander, beaten and defeated, stood in stunned silence. His once steady hands shook as he looked at the empty space where human ships had once seemed so small. Now, they loomed, victorious, the light from their weapons casting an almost holy glow over Earth, a beacon of hope for humanity. Zorath commander, surrendering, his voice trembling with defeat. We were wrong. You humans. You've defeated us. The words were heavy with disbelief. The commander had never imagined a day like this. The Zorathians, conquerors of countless worlds, had been bested by a species they thought weak, insignificant. And now, there was nothing left but surrender. Across the communications channel, General Eva James stood tall, the weight of victory upon her. Her face was set in resolve, a faint glimmer of triumph in her eyes as she looked toward the shattered remnants of the alien fleet. General Eva James, you should never have underestimated us. Humanity may be small in the universe, but we fight with everything we have. The words carried the weight of centuries of struggle, of survival against impossible odds. This victory was not just for Earth, but for all of humanity, an undeniable testament to their strength, unity, and will to never give up. The human forces, once on the brink of annihilation, now stood victorious. The light from their warships shone brightly against the backdrop of Earth, casting a symbolic glow over their planet. They had fought with everything they had, using not just their weapons, but their minds, their creativity, and their courage. The Zorathians, once rulers of the universe, were now nothing more than prisoners of their own arrogance, trapped in their own defeat. They had underestimated the power of humanity, the resilience that could not be crushed, no matter how overwhelming the force. As the dust settled, the once mighty and arrogant Zorathian warships were forced to retreat in panic and helplessness. An empire that once seemed invincible was now reduced to shattered remnants of its own arrogance. Humanity, standing firm in the face of disaster, had achieved the unimaginable not just with weapons, but with intellect, creativity, and an unbreakable spirit. But this victory wasn't just a military triumph. It was a lesson to the universe. Humanity proved that nothing can defeat us when we unite and refuse to give up. We may be small, but when faced with challenges, we don't just survive, we rise stronger than ever before. We have won, but this story doesn't end here. The universe is vast, and humanity still has much to discover and face. Will we continue to overcome every obstacle? Or are there stronger enemies waiting in the wings? Stay tuned to our channel to catch more incredible stories about the strength of humanity, limitless adventures, and unimaginable victories. Subscribe now to keep exploring with us, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.